It was a scorching summer afternoon, and I had just finished a long week at work. All I wanted was to relax in my backyard pool. I had lived in this house for over 5 years, and the pool was one of my favorite features. I'd spent a lot of time and money maintaining it, making sure it was always clean and perfect for days just like this. I grabbed a cold drink, put on some sunglasses, and eased into the water, feeling the tension leave my body. Little did I know, my peace was about to be shattered by the most entitled woman I had ever met, my neighbor, Karen. Karen had moved into the house next door about 6 months ago, and from day one, she had been a nightmare. She was the kind of person who acted like she owned the entire neighborhood. She constantly complained about everything: the height of my fence, the excessive noise from my lawnmower, even my car being parked in my own driveway. I had mostly ignored her, hoping she would eventually get the message that I wasn't going to bend to her ridiculous demands. But today, Karen took her entitlement to an entirely new level. As I floated on my back, enjoying the sun, I suddenly heard a loud, shrill scream. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" I snapped out of my relaxation and looked toward the fence. There she was, standing on her deck, arms crossed, her face twisted in absolute fury. I sighed, already dreading whatever nonsense she was about to spew. "Enjoying my pool, Karen," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "Your pool?" "I don't think so," she snapped. "I know the real owners of this house. They're out of town, and you have no right to be here." I blinked, completely caught off guard. "What?" Karen pointed a perfectly manicured finger at me, her nails painted an obnoxious shade of neon pink. "You're trespassing," she screamed. "I've never seen you before. You broke in, didn't you? You think you can just take over someone's property while they're away?" For a moment, I was too stunned to even respond. Was she serious? I had lived here for 5 years. I had personally built the deck around the pool, landscaped the yard, and installed the security cameras. How on earth could she not know that I was the homeowner? I let out a short laugh, thinking she had to be joking. "Karen, I live here. This is my house. My pool." "Liar," she screeched. "I met the real owners when I moved in. You're a burglar, and I'm calling the police right now." Before I could even process the insanity of what was happening, Karen whipped out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes? Hello. I'd like to report a break-in," she practically shrieked into the phone. "There's a strange man trespassing in my neighbor's backyard. He's in their pool right now. I think he's trying to rob them. Send someone fast." I stared at her in disbelief. Was this actually happening? "Karen, hang up the phone," I said, trying to stay calm. "I can literally show you proof that I live here." But Karen wasn't listening. She was pacing back and forth on her deck, dramatically gasping as she gave a completely made-up story to the dispatcher. "He's wearing sunglasses, trying to hide his identity. He's drinking alcohol in broad daylight. Oh my God, what if he's armed? I don't feel safe. Please, hurry." I sighed, realizing there was no reasoning with her. She was fully committed to this delusion. Now, I wasn't too worried. The police would show up, I'd explain the situation, show them my ID, and this would all be over, right? Wrong. Karen wasn't just a regular entitled neighbor, she was a full-blown manipulative liar. And she was about to make my life a whole lot more complicated.
I had dealt with Karen's absurd behavior before, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. 10 minutes after she called 911, I heard the unmistakable sound of police sirens blaring down the street. I looked toward the front of my house and saw 2 patrol cars pulling up into my driveway, red and blue lights flashing. Karen stood on her deck, grinning smugly, like she had just solved a major crime. As soon as the officers stepped out, Karen practically launched herself over the fence, waving her arms dramatically. "Officers, over here. He's right there," she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "That man broke into my neighbor's house. He was swimming in their pool like he owns the place. I think he's on drugs. He needs to be arrested immediately. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen was standing there, fully committed to the role of a distressed neighbor reporting a dangerous criminal. One of the officers, a tall man with a serious expression, walked toward me with his hand resting on his holstered gun. "Sir," he called out, his voice firm, "step out of the pool now." I raised my hands in utter disbelief. "Officers, I live here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "This is my property, my pool. I can show you proof." Karen gasped dramatically and clutched her chest like she was having a heart attack. "Don't listen to him," she shrieked. "He's a liar. I know the real owners. They're out of town. He's trespassing." One of the officers turned back to her. "Ma'am, please calm down." But Karen wasn't calming down. If anything, she was getting worse. "He has to be a criminal. Who just swims in a stranger's pool in broad daylight?" she cried. "He looks suspicious. What if he's dangerous?" The officer turned back to me, eyeing me with skepticism. "Sir, do you have any proof that you live here?" I sighed, already exhausted by the stupidity of the situation. "Yes, officer. I can show you my driver's license, utility bills, and security footage from my doorbell cam. I also have a key to the front door." Karen let out another dramatic gasp. "He probably stole the key. Check his pockets. He might have weapons." One of the officers gave me an apologetic glance. Clearly, they were starting to suspect that Karen might not be the most reliable witness. "Sir," the officer said, "do you mind if we check your ID?" "Not at all," I said. I stepped out of the pool, grabbed my towel, and walked toward the house. As I reached for the sliding door to get inside, Karen let out another unhinged shriek. "He's breaking in. Stop him. He's trying to escape." I literally had to stop myself from rolling my eyes. I unlocked the door with my key and stepped inside. The officers followed me in, leaving Karen standing outside, sputtering in outrage. Inside, I grabbed my wallet from the kitchen counter and pulled out my driver's license, which had my address clearly printed on it. I also grabbed a water bill and my mortgage statement, just to be extra thorough. I handed everything over to the officers, who examined the documents for a solid minute. One of them sighed and turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, this is his house. He's the legal owner." Karen's jaw dropped so hard I thought it was going to unhinge like a snake. "W what?" "No, that can't be right," she stammered. "He's lying. Check again. Call the real owners." The officer let out a tired sigh. "Ma'am, his name is on the deed. His ID matches the address. He has bills in his name. This is his home. You just made a false 911 call." "But I was just trying to protect the neighborhood," she whined. "He looked suspicious. You can't blame me for being a good citizen." The officer rubbed his temples, clearly running out of patience. "Ma'am, wasting police resources with false reports is a serious offense." Karen's face turned red, then purple. "This is ridiculous. You're all in on it, aren't you? He must have paid you off. This is corruption." At this point, I was struggling not to laugh. The second officer stepped forward and crossed his arms. "Ma'am, if you don't calm down, you'll be the one getting arrested today." Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then, with a dramatic huff, she turned on her heel and stormed back to her house, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. The officers turned back to me, clearly exasperated. "I'm so sorry about this," one of them said. "We get false calls like this sometimes, but this one takes the cake." "No kidding," I replied, shaking my head. "Do you want to press charges?" the officer asked. I considered it for a moment. Karen had wasted police resources, lied about me being a burglar, and tried to have me arrested for being in my own backyard. But honestly, I just wanted to enjoy my pool. "Not today," I said. "But if she pulls something like this again, I'll be pressing charges." The officers nodded, thanked me for my time, and left. As soon as they were gone, I locked the door, went back outside, and jumped right back into the pool. But this wasn't over. Karen wasn't done with me yet. And what she did next, it was even crazier. After failing to get me arrested for using my own pool, Karen wasn't about to back down. She had embarrassed herself in front of the police, wasted their time, and had no legal grounds to harass me. So what did she do next? She took it to the HOA, claiming I was an unauthorized tenant and that I needed to be evicted immediately. The problem? I don't even live in an HOA. That didn't stop Karen. The very next morning, I woke up to a letter taped to my door. It was on official-looking HOA stationery, and in big, bold letters it read, "Notice of violation, illegal occupancy, and unauthorized use of HOA amenities." I stared at the letter, completely dumbfounded. My property wasn't part of any HOA. How could I be in violation of HOA rules that don't even apply to me? The letter claimed that I was living in the neighborhood without proper registration with the HOA, that my use of the community pool was unauthorized, and that I had repeatedly disturbed the peace by refusing to comply with the rules. The kicker: it stated that I was being fined $5,000 and had 14 days to vacate my home. I had to read it twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. There was no way I was going to let this slide. The HOA inspection. Later that afternoon, I was watering my plants when I saw a group of HOA board members, including Karen, marching down my driveway like they owned the place. There were 3 of them: Karen, a man in a suit, and a woman holding a clipboard. Karen had the smuggest look I had ever seen. "You need to pack your things and leave, sir," she said, crossing her arms. "We're here to enforce the HOA regulations. You're illegally occupying this home and using HOA property without authorization." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Karen, I don't live in your OA. I pulled out my property deed and held it up. See this? My land is outside the HOA jurisdiction. Your rules don't apply to me." Karen scoffed. "That doesn't matter. This entire community is under the HOA's authority. Your pool is visible from the street, so it's part of the neighborhood's aesthetic. If it's visible, it falls under HOA oversight." "That's not how property law works, Karen," I replied, barely containing my laughter. The man in the suit cleared his throat. "Regardless, sir, we've decided that your behavior is disruptive to the community. We have received multiple complaints." I cut him off. "From Karen." He shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes, but..." "Let me stop you right there," I said, holding up my hand. "I'm not paying a fine. I'm not moving. And if you step onto my property again, I will file trespassing charges against all of you." Karen's face turned beet red. "You can't just ignore the HOA," she shrieked. "Oh, but I can," I said, "because I'm not part of it." The legal showdown. Karen stormed off, but she wasn't done yet. A week later, I received an actual legal notice in the mail. Karen and her HOA had filed an official complaint demanding my eviction. They were actually trying to take me to court. Now, this is where things get really good. I immediately contacted a real estate attorney who took one look at the HOA's claim and burst out laughing. "This is a joke, right?" he said. "Nope," I replied. "Karen actually thinks she can evict me from my own house." My attorney put together a counterclaim so airtight that even a blindfolded judge could see through the HOA's nonsense. We sued them for harassment, trespassing, and filing a frivolous lawsuit. Karen gets destroyed in court. When the court date arrived, Karen looked so confident, so smug, right up until the judge started speaking. The judge barely let her finish before tearing her apart. "You have no legal standing to enforce HOA rules on a non-HOA property," the judge said. "This is a clear case of harassment." Karen started panicking. But he was using the pool," she stammered. The judge leaned forward. "His pool. On his property." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The judge dismissed their case immediately and ruled in my favor. The HOA was ordered to pay me $15,000 in damages for harassment and trespassing. Karen had to pay out of pocket, too. The final meltdown. After the case was closed, I walked out of the courthouse with the biggest grin on my face. Karen, on the other hand, was absolutely livid. As soon as we stepped outside, she marched up to me, seething with rage. "You think this is over?" she screamed. You're ruining this neighborhood. You don't belong here. I chuckled. Funny. I own my house, and you just paid me $15,000. Sounds like I belong just fine. She let out a frustrated shriek and stormed off, fumbling with her phone like she was about to call the police again. Epilogue: the HOA collapses. After Karen's humiliating loss in court, the HOA quickly fell apart. The other board members started resigning left and right, not wanting to be associated with her ridiculous antics. A few months later, the HOA was officially dissolved. No more random fines. No more Karen. Peace was finally restored. And the best part, I still swim in my pool every single day.